I'm Telisa Steen, and you are listening to The Movie Raid.
It's time for the movie raid. Tonight's victim is actress Telisa Steen, that is currently doing the film Powerless. Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Still awake. I just got off work a couple hours ago, so I'm great. So what's up with Powerless, this movie?
So Powerless is, it's actually a faith-based film, but it's interesting because it's really gritty. I don't think that you would know that it is a faith-based film just by reading the script or by seeing this. Really, there's a lot of dark elements to it, and it's very universal, and I think that most people who watch it are going to be able to relate in one way or another to this. So basically, I'll tell you a little bit about it. I'm playing the central character who is a deputy sheriff and a high-functioning alcoholic. You go through this journey with this character, and through her addiction, she ends up making a terrible mistake and winds up in prison. It's pretty dark and heavy. There's a lot meat to this character. Yeah, it's exciting.
Now, did you put all your energy and focus specifically on that, or did you have to divide up specific type of emotions in order to achieve this role?
Well, this character runs the gamut. I mean, there's this huge arc. I get to experience this love that she has for her family, for her husband and her children, and also she's this hero within this town, so people really admire her. She's a total badass. She's, catching the bad guys day after day. She's incredibly strong. She has this addiction problem that she really doesn't admit to, even to herself. She hides this problem even from herself, and she goes on throughout her day-to-day life just believing that she's totally got it under control, and she, in some ways, does until she hits rock bottom and things get really bad. And so then there is this whole arc of emotion of grief and sadness. There's a whole journey that she goes through when she's in prison that goes through a whole bunch of stuff. So it's really, for me as an actor, it's really juicy because I'm living this entire world in this film. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I could imagine, though, it could be so emotionally exhausting of how much storyline that involves your character, from being the strong character to having weaknesses, pointing that out to the crowd and everybody within the film, and having to draw all this energy out in the open. And then not only that, the other half of the other scenes, you mentioned the prison, having to get all that out in that, being boxed into whatever's left over the emotion and having to salvage from all that.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think that for me personally as an actor, and maybe as a human, I think that my niche, or what I really have spent a lot of time working on character-wise, are these characters, these women who are incredibly strong, but also super fragile. I think it takes a tremendous amount of strength to be vulnerable. And so there's that dichotomy, and that I think that those two sides balance each other out. And it's a fine line. And I think that I'm always drawn to these characters because probably who I am as a human.
It's interesting to see these type of characters because some of these that have these weaknesses that either sometimes are just blatantly out in the open and even the character doesn't realize it, or the fact is that maybe they're using these kind of weaknesses to their own advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are people who kind of get sucked into living a life where they are weak and they kind of get pity from people and do take advantage. Yeah, and I think people can get sucked into that kind of lifestyle. And I think this character isn't that way. She won't even admit defeat even when it's smacking her in the face. It's like, no. I still have it together. I'm still the hero. I'm still Wonder Woman.
This character may have actually looked in a mirror, stared at this mirror for probably a good hour and a half, looking at herself, the fact that she knows that she does this type of deal, but she knows can still uphold that strength that she has still, but at the same time that she's downfalling herself.
It means she's forced to recognize it. She can't deny it any longer. And that's kind of the thing with people with addiction. Once they call it, hitting rock bottom, when the rug gets pulled out from under you and suddenly you don't have a choice. And I think it's a shock to people who are living in addiction to be going along thinking everything is okay, even though I know that there's probably that nagging part of them in the back of their head that recognizes, wow, this is risky behavior, or other people from the outside are making comments, and to have that constant denial going. But then once you have to face it, and you really have to get on your knees and recognize wow, I might not survive any longer. Like, there's something going on. I cannot continue to live this path because there's nowhere to go down from here. Like, I've already hit it. And then there's that choice. What are you going to do? How are you going to respond?
Definitely. It's like that they're carrying this piece of misery around them. Like, they don't know what to do with it. They're holding it close to them, and they're trying to figure out where can I actually use this to my advantage, or should I just keep this and just die?
Right. That's a good point. I think that I see that, I work in downtown Seattle, and I see a lot of people that are dealing with addiction, and a lot of times it's drugs versus alcohol, and I can see people have lost that will to live, and it's incredibly sad. It breaks my heart to see people, and it's like, I wish I could save everybody and just say, hey, you've got to just ask for help and make that choice, and things will get better. You can turn things around, but I think it's really difficult for people when they're already in that void of not wanting to go on because they are carrying so much pain. And by the way, most people do fall into addiction as a way to self-medicate for they've had trauma in the past. And so they are just trying to feel good. So they've been doing drugs or alcohol to try to feel better, but then it's a vicious cycle. And then they just, like I said, they lose their will to live, and it's devastating. It's really, really sad.
Do you think actors should have a better security rather a project goes well or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you're a dedicated actor, which of course I am, and you put your heart and soul into a role, I think that no matter what ends up happening with the project, I think there can always be benefit from that. And whether, even if it's something where, say, you had a terrible experience on set, you filmed something, you shot a movie, it never goes anywhere, it's never accepted into festivals, but let's say that director gets you your footage, and because you are the dedicated actor that you are, you did excellent work, and so then you have a scene that you can put into your reel, and then you can show, here's this little piece of me, here is what I have to offer in this context. Absolutely. I think you can gain something from every experience that you have.
Do you think actors should be more associated with projects that do succeed and be more aggressive in that area than to explore other options in some aspects?
I think that's a personal choice. I think it's going to be different for everyone, and maybe even different at various points in their career. For me, I really look at if I'm interested in a project or if I'm being approached to be a part of a project, there's just different criteria that would be involved for me. And I'm not necessarily looking at it at like, oh, is this going to be successful? Is this going to get distribution? That's not like my end-all need in taking a project. I want to work on pieces that challenge me, and usually for these emotional ones, I'm usually really terrified to accept a role. I was scared to death of this role in Powerless. Even the day of my first audition, I was scared to death because I knew I was going to have to give so much of myself. That's the kind of role that I want to take. And I want to work with good people. I want to work with people who are positive, who are inspiring, who are uplifting and supportive, and create a positive environment for everyone to shine so that everyone can do their best work. That's really important to me. And then, of course, the storyline. And it's even better, like, if I know that there are actors involved that I am friends with or that I want to work with, because it really makes a difference when you're working with people that you respect and that bring that same level of talent. That will make your work excel that much more. So I do like to work with people who are better than me.
That's good, because when you accept that means that you're willing to even learn from other people that are more experienced than you. And that's okay. It's okay to work under people that might be even better than you, because you can also be better in your own way, because you are making an example of yourself to the public, to the studio, and your other co-workers around you, so you can get that best quality out of the character of yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. I model myself after the best of the best. And as an actor or as a creative person, you're never done learning. And that's the beauty of it. Like, I can't stand being stagnant. I always constantly have to be growing and stretching and learning. And I'm totally fine admitting, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, I'm completely lost, or I've just made a fool out of myself. Like, I would rather do that. I would rather fall down and fail and get back up and know what I did wrong and what I need to do differently. And then I can grow and I can get to that next here. I would much rather do that than play it safe and dumb it down and not take risks.
You can't simply just play it safe, because if you play it safe, you're not expanding yourself. You're not exploring new areas of what you're really capable of doing. And if you just simply stop from right there, it's going to be boring as a character actor as yourself. It's going to be boring to probably watch in general for other future films, because you're going to play the same thing, and it's not going to be as interesting. And in order to make a good storyline, you got to accept yourself first.
Yes, agreed, definitely. And I think what makes people want to watch you is when they feel that spark inside of themselves, when you are being so genuine and so real, and you're willing to like expose that piece of yourself and jump out on that ledge. That will touch their hearts. That will affect them, the audience, and they will go, oh my God. Even if they can't verbalize it, or even if it's not a conscious thing deep down inside, they will feel that resonate in them, and they're going to think like, wow, like that could be me, or I see myself in that person, and it will draw them in. And that's human nature that we have, is that we mirror each other back and forth, and that's where people get pulled in.
And the audience, they have to trust in the actors. They got to trust the project itself, because if they don't try to accept that themselves, the audience have to accept it too, not just the actor. The audience have to accept, before you even watch the film, accept it first. Like, be open to it. Check it out. And of course, you are, with your given right, you can say that you hate the film or whatever. That's fine. That's your entire opinion. But the fact is, when you are open as the audience, when you're watching these actors, the story play out, you have to accept the fact that these guys are doing this for you. These guys are entertaining you. These guys are expressing something from the actor's own point of view and their own piece of their own life, personal life, to you, to help you for your personal life, to help you get through whatever it is through the day, to entertain you, make you laugh, make you cry, make you angry, whatever it is, because it should help you in the end.
I love that, and I think that you have this heightened sense of, or perception of, what being like an audience member is all about. I don't know that like everybody could communicate that or could understand that with themselves, but I do. Yes, you're absolutely right, and I hope, through your education, that more people will recognize that is who they are as an audience member, and that there is that respect for what the actor is doing, because we are working in service for you, for the viewer. Like, everything that we're doing, I mean, yes, of course, we benefit from it greatly, but we're very giving people. Like, we are in service. We are working for you.
Yes, definitely. And speaking of which, do you think that actors sometimes take a little bit too much looking at things more objectively on a personal view before even performing?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly how to answer that. I know when I'm working on a role, or even if I'm working on an audition, I mean, I'll ask myself a million different questions. I think I am being objective and trying to decode this human that I'm trying to find ways that I connect with, or that I am the same as that person. And that can change. I mean, you walk into an audition room and you have your idea of what you think is going on, and that's your job. You bring in your own personal interpretation. And sometimes the director's like, well, hey, what if you do, X, Y, Z? And they give you a direction that's completely opposite of what you have just brought in. And I think that we as actors need to be really open to other ideas and to input, and we need to be flexible so that we can shift and change gears all the time.
Yeah, you have to, because that gives you better preparation for future roles, regardless of how big or how small it is. Even if you're just an extra, or if you're just a newspaper person, the fact is, you're giving your all. You're showing an example of what you're being thrown at. Even if you are a newspaper person, guess what? Now you're pretty good at doing that. Guess what? Now you're going to elevate to being a store clerk, or you're going to elevate to be a bank robber or something like that. And then it's going to elevate. It's going to keep doing it. It's like tiers. It's like an invisible level advancement. You're just going to keep going and keep going if you just keep pushing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's key. Like, yeah, absolutely. Whatever role you're doing, even if it's a small role, your job is to live in those circumstances when you're on set. So even if you don't have any lines, and this happened recently, I was in another film called Big Trouble in Seattle. It's kind of a mob thriller. And I was on set. It was a pretty intense scene, and I didn't have, I had one line, but I was engaged with the lead character. But because I was so fully invested in that world and in those circumstances, and it was a really heightened circumstance, particular scene, I had another actor come up to me afterwards, and he said, wow, that every time I looked at you, you were crying. Like, you were so in the moment that you made my job easier. I was feeding off of your energy, and then I was able to live in those circumstances too. And that made me so happy, because it's like that's what we do. We create these worlds, and we actually have to believe we're living in them, so that like we can build that truth for everyone that's involved. It's amazing. It's powerful.
Go ahead and plug in any websites, including like regardless with Powerless or anything that you'd like to promote that we can check out right now.
Oh yes, absolutely. Powerlessthemovie.com. That's the website for the film, and I think that they're still adding to it and making adjustments, but that's definitely a great place to check out. And then of course my website, telisasteen.com, and I'm also on IMDb. You can check me out there. Yeah, appreciate the support. Thank you.
There you have it, everybody. That is Telisa Steen.